1011-2941. Member Wasson?
Resolution expelling a student, whereas a written notice of intent to expel a student attending Woodland Middle School was served upon the student and the student's parents, so on and so forth. Item 1, the school board hereby accepts the waiver and expels the student from the school of Independent School District 709 Duluth for 1 full year, 12 months from October 18, 2011 through October 18, 2012. So on. I move Resolution E-1011-2941, October 18, 2011.
Thank you, Member Wasson. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Member Casper. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries 6-0. Okay, and I'm going to adjourn this special school board meeting. Okay, I'm going to bring the regular school board meeting of Tuesday, October 18th, 2011 to order. Member Grover, would you call roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Member Cameron is absent. Member Glass?
Present.
I am here. Member Johnston? Member Casper?
Here.
Chair Sligapunko?
Here.
Member Wasson?
Here.
Superintendent Foster is absent. We have Bill Gronseth, Assistant Superintendent, sitting in. Deputy Clerk Hansen? Here. Secretary Melinda Tebow? Here. Student Rep Lindsay Redenbaugh? Here. And Marcus John?
Here.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Member Grover. Will everyone stand up and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Okay, the first order of business is approval of the agenda. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Member Wasson. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Member Casper. Any discussion? Member Johnston?
Yes, I'm raising a point of order.
What is your point of order?
At September 20th meeting at 18:43, I gave notice to have discussion on the review and comment amendment number 2, dated September 13th on the agenda. That's in the minutes that we're going to approve in a minute. I also gave notice at that
Member
meeting
Johnston,
at 18:44.
are you asking about the minute changes, or we're just approving the agenda? That's all, not the
Madam
minutes.
Chair, I'm making a point of order.
I realize that, but we're just on the approval of the agenda when we get to the minutes.
No, this is a point of order.
But is it a point of order on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I also gave notice at the meeting at 18:44 to have the annual resolution authorizing transfer of funds from the general fund to the debt service regarding financing the long-range facility plan, approximately $4.5 million on this meeting's agenda. I also submitted both of these agenda items on September 30th for the agenda setting session. These items are not on the agenda and must be added. I was even physically barred from attending the agenda setting session meeting on October 5th. This is a violation of bylaw 1075, which states that agenda items are to be submitted to the clerk. And policy 8085, which states that agenda initiated at a school board meeting will be taken up at subsequent meetings.
Okay, any more discussion? Member Johnson, you have more?
You have to rule on that.
What do I have to rule on?
My point of order is that the agenda should have these items on. because they were properly submitted to the board and they were inappropriately taken off this. So they must be, if we follow our rules, must be added to this agenda.
Okay, well, I don't think that we can add these to the agenda right now. So I'm just going to, we can vote on if these items should be put on the agenda right now. All those in favor say aye.
I am appealing the decision of the chair.
Oh. Okay, well, I'm ruling that we can't
You
put
ruled
those on the
that
agenda
they
right
shouldn't be
now.
on there, so I'm appealing the decision of the chair.
Okay,
And again, I would like to, I believe the discussion is in order on that appeal. I'm asking for the floor, Madam Chair.
I didn't hear a second, so.
Doesn't have to be
Appeal
a
the
second when you
decision
appeal
of
the
the chair.
decision of the chair.
It does have, oh, wait,
There does have to be a second.
there does have to be a second. All right, let's see.
Second.
There has to have a majority to rule.
Okay.
There has to be discussion.
Okay, so let's have discussion. Go ahead, Member Johnson.
Okay, again, as I have stated here, this is a violation of bylaw 9075, which states that agenda items are to be submitted to the clerk. It's also a violation of policy 8085, which states that items initiated at a school board meeting will be taken up at subsequent meetings. It also states that in our bylaw in 9095 states that any question of order shall be decided according to parliamentary rules of government for deliberative bodies as defined by Robert's Rules of Order newly revised. This is also stated in our board policy 8095, and I'm going to read what that says. This is page 116, line 8. A requirement of previous notice means that the announcement that the motion will be introduced must be included in the call of the meeting at which the motion will be brought. This board, the chair has violated our rules by not putting these agenda items on. I'd like to have a point of information to the chair, asking, tell me why they weren't put on.
Okay, is there any more discussion on adding?
I have a point of information to the chair.
Member Glass, you have your light on. Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to have a discussion on the two items that he's suggested a month ago, because we need to talk about in much more depth of the significance, particularly with regard to the financial impacts of these two items. And so by not talking about them in a timely fashion, we're getting to a point where it'll be embarrassing if we don't get that information decided upon at an early time. So it would be appropriate for us to talk about these two items at this point.
Member Johnston?
Sure, I'm asking for a point of information from the chair. Why weren't these items put on the agenda?
I think you would have to ask Dr. Foster, who's not here.
The chair and the
control
clerk
that.
determine the agenda.
The
Are
superintendent
you saying then you don't know why they weren't put on the agenda?
The superintendent determines the agenda.
The clerk and the chair and the superintendent determine the agenda, so I'm asking you why they are not put on the agenda.
Okay.
I'm asking for a point of information here.
I think you'd have to ask Superintendent Foster, and he's not here.
So you don't know.
I-
So then they should be
Superintendent
put
puts
on the
together
agenda.
So,
They have to be put on the agenda without a vote then. If nobody knows why they're not on the agenda, they have to be on the agenda.
okay, for those, we're going to, I think we have enough discussion. Those of you that want to uphold my decision to not add any more agenda items, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries 5-1 to uphold my decision.
I voted no.
Okay, 4-2, with members Glass and Johnston voting against it. Okay, we're going to go back to approval of the agenda, and it's been moved by Member Wasson and seconded by Member Casper.
Madam Chair.
Okay, Member Johnson, you have one more discussion?
have all the discussions I want, Madam Chair, to correct you. I have a motion to amend the agenda to add discussion of amendment number 2 to the original red plan review and comment dated September 13, 2011, and given to board members on Friday, September 16.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to add an agenda item by Member Johnson, seconded by Member Glass. All those in favor say aye.
Madam Chair, there's discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Discussion. Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. This was passed on, I believe, June 27th. The review and comment was submitted on September 13th. Since that was done, there has been absolutely no comment, discussion by this board on what it is. I had a request for information. It took 2.5 months before it was never answered, except the review and comment was there. I think it's absolutely critical that this board now discuss this, particularly before the upcoming election. I think it's very critical that the citizens of Duluth know what's going on, and by keeping this off the agenda, we are keeping the public from knowing what's going on.
Member Glass?
This particular amendment to the red plan review and comment authorize an additional $15.4 million. The purpose for that 15.4 and for which it was to be used and where and how it was going to be paid back are questions that were not answered and have not been answered. And so this is one of the reasons why we think it's important we bring up this topic to see why and where we're going to get this money from and what it's going to be used for.
Okay, seeing no more discussion, let's vote on adding this to the agenda. All those in favor?
Chair Saliga.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. Member Casper.
I'm not opposed to some additional conversation about that, but I believe that the administration of this school district needs to have proper time to prepare that conversation and that information for us. So I am certainly not opposed to that conversation in the near future, but I believe that there isn't the opportunity for the proper parties to prepare that information for us and to prepare something that we can understand, and not that we can understand, but I would prefer that it comes from the administration of this school district as far as what those kinds of things are about. So I'm in somewhat support of what Member Johnston says, that the opportunity for additional discussion, but I'm not in support of having it happen at this time, because we have not given, in my mind, the administration a proper amount of time to prepare that for us. So I won't be supporting it based on that.
Member Johnston.
Madam Chair, just want to remind the board and the public that a previous notice was given on this a month ago. I had an information request in 3 months ago, and I gave this to the agenda setting session 2 weeks ago, and this has been ignored. So this board, this administration has had more than sufficient time to respond to this, and they've chosen not to, which means, indicates to me that that's why we as a board must bring it up, because administration will not talk about this.
Okay, we're going to vote on adding this to the agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. That fails 2-4. Okay, we're going to move on to the approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair?
Member Johnston?
Yes. I have a motion to add to the agenda item discussion on information being presented to the public by the school district on the upcoming election on the operating levy.
Second.
Okay, any more discussion?
Yes, Madam
ahead.
Chair. Again, this was again submitted a month ago. This was again, information was asked. I went and talked to the administration. The administration, I think, clearly declared that the information that was being presented a month ago was wrong. Yet there's been no corrections made, very little corrections made, and I think it's critical that this board have this agenda item on here now before the upcoming election, so this public can finally find the truth out about this, because obviously we're being denied that.
Member Glass.
One of the things that is our obligation as a board member is to make sure that the information that we get and give to the public is correct. And when we find that there are major errors in the information that has been put out, it's our obligation, all of us, to correct that and make sure they have the proper information. Until that correction has been issued, we're not going to be satisfied that the public has been properly informed on this issue of the upcoming referendum.
Okay, we're going to vote on this amendment being, or this agenda item being put on. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. That fails 2-4. Okay, I would like to move on the approval
Madam
of the
Chair.
agenda. Member Johnston.
Yes. I have to make a motion to add to the agenda the item, discussion of staff using internal public school communications and computers to campaign and solicit funds for the upcoming general election and levy referendum.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair. We brought this up a month ago. I brought this up privately to the superintendents. Nothing has been done, absolutely nothing has been done. I'd like to remind this board that this school is violating the law by refusing to do anything about this. I have a whole list of things that have went on since I brought it up to the attention of the board. Nothing has been stopped. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And again, that's why it's absolutely critical for the board to move on this, to bring this up to the light of the public so they know what their school administration is doing.
I just wanted to say that this was addressed with the individuals involved, and an email was sent out district-wide reminding all of our employees of the importance of following our policies, and so the issue was addressed.
Thank you. Bill. Okay, Member Johnston.
Sure, Madam Chair, I want to again bring the attention to the administration that these emails are continuing. I even got 2 more today. So apparently, also a question, what was done to the individuals that were violating our policy and law?
I can't share that publicly.
I expect to hear it then after the meeting.
Member Glass.
Yes, you could share with us, though, the email that was sent out admonishing staff not to do that and to follow the policies, correct? That's a public email?
Yes, I don't have it with me right now,
No,
but
but you could
I
share
can
it.
provide that for you, yes.
Thank you. Please send me a copy.
Okay, so we're going to vote on putting that onto the agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. That fails 2-4. Okay, now we're going to move on to the approval of the whole agenda. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Okay, so that carries 4-2. And we're going to move on to reading and approving of the minutes. The special school board meeting of September 16th, 2011. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Member Wasson. Is there a second? Seconded by Member Casper. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries 6-0. Next one is a special school board meeting of September 20th. Okay, moved by Member Wasson. Is there a second? Seconded by Member Casper. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries 6-0. And we have our regular school board meeting of September 20th. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Moved by Member Grover. Second? Seconded by Member Casper. Any discussion? Member Johnston.
Madam Chair, a couple minor items. Usually I wouldn't mention minor items, but this is off quite a bit. Members present, Judy Sligo-Punko arrived at 7:08, not 6:44. No, it's not, because that's not what the time says on the video. Other minor items is on the bottom of the first page and on the top of the second page, the chair was Ann Wasson, which is vice chair, not Chair Sligo-Punko. And I do have one other item. This is at the last meeting, at the end of the meeting, back on page 11. There was a point of order raised by myself due to illegal adjournment of the meeting. and that was not on the minutes. The point of order was not on there. And also, the agenda was not finished, and I and other people had our mic shut off, and no vote was even taken. So I'm asking for all those to be put on the minutes. I made a point of order that the chair was using a legal procedure, and the chair refused to even acknowledge that. You can't hear it because my microphone was shut off, but it was on there. If you listen closely, you'll see my point of order. Point of orders must be on the minutes. And also should be noticed that it was not responded to. And that the meeting was illegally adjourned.
Okay, we're going to vote on the minutes of the regular school board meeting of September 20th. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries 6-0. And then we have the special school board meeting of October 6th. I have a motion, please. Moved by Member Wasson, seconded by Member Casper. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those, Member Glass.
Yes, I made a motion at the beginning of the meeting that was not properly recorded, and I read motion several times to make sure that it was into the record, but it still didn't get properly recorded, and I would like to make sure that that is a correction, because at that particular time, this board member had no information on the naming of the committee, and so my motion named the committee as Casper, Cameron, Haglund, and Dudley to be the committee. That was my motion, and that needs to be properly recorded.
Okay, we're ready to vote on this.
Madam Chair.
Member Johnston?
Another correction is at the bottom. It stated Member Johnson called a point of order that he seconded the motion. It should have been, my point of order was that there was a motion on the floor and that the motion had to be addressed.
Okay, we're going to vote on the minutes of the special school board meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we're going to move into number 6, audience. So Member Casper, if you would check that, please. Okay, I'm just going to ask people to, we're going to keep it to about 3 minutes, and I know Member Grover will give you a little signal before you come, and we've got a watch here, and just keep your comments civilized. Our first speaker is Bob Lyman. If you would come up, and then the next one is Mike Piet, maybe? Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members, and school staff, district staff. I live at 3205 Graceland Road, just behind Congdon Elementary School. Naturally, I'm concerned when there may be some major changes to my neighborhood. The neighbors who live behind my home and have been close friends for 20 years may have to leave their homes for the new remodeling at the school. I'm first of all disappointed by the school district as a good neighbor for not keeping me informed of the final proposal until it came out in the paper. I have watched the district's website and I have not seen the new plan posted there yet. I was going to speak about 6 months ago, but was kindly taken aside and shared the 3 proposals that were at that time and said that I would have a chance to comment on them when it came to a final vote. All of a sudden it comes out in the paper that you've voted on the final plan and it isn't even the one that I saw that was proposed. I was a little shocked by that. This was disappointing because I will be your next door neighbor in the new plan. In this plan, 5 of my backyard neighbors will have to move and the school district will be spending more than $1 million to relocate a hockey rink, warming house, and Zamboni garage. Is that correct? Yes. 5 neighbors will have to move to accommodate a hockey rink. That isn't right. To destroy my neighborhood and relocate a hockey rink? Doesn't make sense. I would say no, it doesn't make any sense at all. I'm worried about the noise from the loudspeakers, the snow blower, the ice machine, the light pollution, and the millions of gallons of water that will melt each spring and run into my backyard and Tisha Creek. Please do not destroy my neighborhood and my friends' homes and my property value. To see parents park on the streets by my home is not offensive. I enjoy watching parents walk up to the school for special events, as I do with my daughter so many times, but I don't want a hockey rink in my backyard. Those neighbors are your eyes and ears as those children walk to school. Please don't take these homes for a hockey rink, and please be a good neighbor and keep me informed of your plans in a timely way so I can address my concerns to you, my representatives on the school district. As I watch tonight, I understand and I see that democracy can be very messy. I realize that your jobs are not easy. Therefore, I'd like to thank each of you for your dedication and your time, for kindly listening to my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, next speaker is Mike Piet, I think, and then Rich Paulson.
Thank you for pronouncing that correctly. It's not real common. I wrote down my comments so I could try and not ramble. I'm Michael Piet. I'm a homeowner at 3214 Graceland Place across the street from Congdon Elementary. My house is the one on the end of the block. I'm here today to find out why, or as much as I can, why someone thinks it's a good idea to put the end of the hockey rink through my living room. As I see it, the problem is one of getting things the right size. The school needs to be the right size to house the classrooms for the children. The state requires that the site be the right size acreage for the square footage of the building. Also, they require the right size parking lot for the population of the school. When this process started, we were told that you needed 2 properties in order to right size your acreage need, and you chose the 2 in the middle of the block, right across from the present parking lot, to provide more parking for the school. And for the last 4 years, that's how long this has been dragging on, the plan has been to put additional parking across the street. Now in September, they published the new plan, and that's all seems to have changed. By my count now, you have actually 4 properties, including the Deer Park. I am not... Last month, the site plan was approved that puts parking drop-off across the, on the field where the hockey used to be, and move the hockey across the street. Now, the state requires that you do have enough parking for the school, but unless I'm mistaken, there is no state requirement for hockey at elementary schools. Therefore, I do not see this as an equal exchange of importance. I am not anti-hockey. I think this has been poorly handled. But I am anti-foolish spending in this present economy. This plan apparently shows that you think it's appropriate to use tax dollars from the building fund for educational facilities to buy and bulldoze houses for hockey. Let me rephrase that statement. In a time when there are whole countries in Europe in austerity programs to try and not be the next domino to fall in the shaky world economy, here in Duluth, Minnesota, we believe we're in the process of planning to take monies from education to destroy homes to make certain that a number of boys are going to have enough ice time. Does this make any sense to you? Because it doesn't to me. Also, is it logical to put the parking on site for the safety of the drivers and the possible other children, but then move what essentially is a playground area across the street? I feel unless there is a common sense compromise deal that can be struck that leaves the hockey rinks largely where they are, maximizing the amount of parking that remains on the site and building an overflow parking lot across the street, that I think the time has come to tell the Hockey Association that the safety and education of our children comes first, and that they have outgrown the space that is available, and they need to start looking elsewhere in the city for the right size venue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Rich Paulson.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to talk a little bit about Resolution B10 112939, borrowing Series 2011B for the Long Range Facility Plan. I guess I got a question for the board members. Have any board member been given a layman's example of capital appreciation bonds and how they work? I spent a lot of time with banker friends and brokers, and I'm not coming up with much. It seems a little unusual. However, we're doing it, it looks like. How can the board justify the additional interest costs for this series with the first levy starting in 2021 and the first payment due in 2023? I estimate the cost of this series to be an additional $315,000 versus a normal amortization series. The total interest equals the amount that you are borrowing. Think about that for a minute. As a retired banker, I can't believe it. In the event the board continues down this method of financing, I estimate the additional cost for the total of 3 series that you've been talking about to be over $4 million. Now, I think that's an awful lot of money in this day and age, as the previous speaker has mentioned. I'm very disappointed in this type of financing and the costs that you are incurring. You need to rethink this. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker is Lauren Martell.
Good evening. What happened to Member Casper at the last regular meeting again demonstrated the dysfunctionality of this board. Tom's motives were clearly noble, as they normally are, and for the majority to act as though he'd done something awful and offensive was the height of hypocrisy. The same group apparently had no problem with the illicit email, which was meant to benefit one of their allies. They never seemed to have a problem with the transgression of a rule as long as it benefits their objectives. One board member in particular lectured that what Member Casper had done, merely trying to address concerns he'd heard in a school, was the most inappropriate thing he'd ever seen from a school board member. The most inappropriate thing I've ever seen from a school board member is breaking every single promise he made to his constituents. That's the most inappropriate thing I've ever seen from any so-called representative of the people, and it offended me. The majority had no problem with that offense against the basic principles of democracy. They circled their wagons around his betrayal and jammed their agenda through as though they had a mandate. The new superintendent hasn't seemed to grasp that people who have been lied to are naturally suspicious, that openness is absolutely imperative to regain their trust. I completely disagree with his lecture to Member Johnston. The author of the email should not have been revealed publicly, but this is absolutely the proper venue for that email to be read and exposed. The people have every right to know if the rules are being violated in relation to a public election. There is no way this matter is strictly administrative. Has any appropriate disciplinary action been taken in regard to this matter? I doubt it. There has been no substantial change here at all. And my worry is that if you continue operating the way you have, arrogantly cutting the public out of the decision-making process. You may wake up one day in the not-too-distant future to find your credit card is no longer any good.
Scott Fisher.
Good evening. My comments and question are not seemingly as quite contentious as my predecessors, so I hope anyway. My comments tonight deal with the choice, as I've read in the paper and heard on the news, in your decision relative to the name for the new, or for the renovated Eastern Middle School, that being East or Ordine. In that respect, I'd like to go back in history a little bit and talk about Mr. Ordine and what he did as a civic leader and as a philanthropist and a very generous man. He bought property. He gave it freely to the city of Duluth. The city of Duluth chose to give it to the school district. The school district decided that that was a good place to build a school, recognized Mr. Ordine for his generosity, and subsequently named that school Ordine. That was back in the mid-50s, and it has remained that way for 50-plus years. My question to the board is this: what exactly has Mr. Ordine done in those 50-plus years that would warrant this board to now remove his name from that Eastern Middle School? I think the answer is pretty simple. Nothing. He's done nothing except his legacy of generosity and caring for the citizens of Duluth lives on today, and should, therefore, your commitment to your predecessor board's recognition of his gifts should remain intact. The renovated Eastern Middle School should remain Ordine Middle School. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Claudia Washington.
Madam Chair, members of the school board, fellow citizens, I think this is probably my third time in advocating for at least one of the schools being named after Marge Wilkins and Ruth Myers. I want to submit that my recommendation had nothing to do with the color of their skin. It had a lot to do with the volunteer service that they provided to the education system here in Duluth and the community. I managed to read some of the blog in the Duluth News Tribune in reference to the naming of the school, and it's very evident to me that racism is alive and well, unfortunately. I hope that we're not naming them because they Native American, African American, but because of their contribution to the community. Not all of the people in this city are able to make the kind of financial contribution that maybe Mr. Ordine made. You know, I can assure you that in the 40 years of service that I've given to the school district, that it has some type of value, and I have not been paid to do that, nor was Marge. And maybe there was a stipend given to Ruth as a member of the school board. I'm not sure, but I think the U.S. school board members know that your service far exceed the tokenism that they give you for your expense for being here. So let's not try to weigh your contribution or Marge or Ruth based on the monetary contribution that they made, but on service. I encourage you to table, any motion to deal with the naming of the school, particularly since the superintendent is not here tonight, and that Mary Cameron is not here tonight, and maybe take this issue up at a later date. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker is Marcia Stromgren.
Members of the board, fellow citizens, my name is Marcy Stromgren. I've been standing here for about 4 years. It will be 4 years in February, objecting to the red plan. You have before you the official press release that was sent to all media in this area last night, and to the Duluth School District and the MDE. And if you read it carefully, you will see that we have more than just been taken for a ride. We have also seen you violate the law. And so I will read, on behalf of the Minnesota Voters Alliance and Duluth Taxpayers Association, the bringing of constitutional claims to the Minnesota Department of Education of Duluth School District of the $15 million Red Plan Amendment. On September 17, 2001, petitioners from Minnesota Voters Alliance and Duluth Taxpayers Association brought their constitutional claims to the Department of Education Commissioner Brenda Casselis against the Duluth School District's $15 million amendment to the Red Plan to construct new school buildings in the Duluth School District. The petitioners assert that the Red Plan amendment constitutionally must be placed before the Duluth School District voters. It is unconstitutional that the only schools that qualify for Minnesota Statute 126C40 Subdivision 6 opt out for voter-approved bond and tax levy referenda are those that receive integration revenue under the Minnesota Statute Section 124 D86 Subdivision 3, which is based on the number of minority students in the school district. The statute's discrimination means that a school district with a low number of minority students cannot use the Minnesota Statute 126C40 Subdivision 6 opt-out for taxpayers within the school districts, which satisfy the integration revenue requirement by having a higher number of Minnesota constitutions. Minority students have the right to vote on tax increase nullified on the basis of race. The United States and Minnesota constitutions prohibit this improper use of race in administering statewide voting systems and statewide taxing systems. The commissioner should reject Amendment 2 because to approve it would be to violate the voting rights of the school district voters and the school district taxpayers. And I'd like to ask you, Mr. Casper, why did you vote for the $15.4 million if now we can't discuss it, because you certainly were well prepared, were you not, for voting on $15.4 million, and yet you put it through. You were one of the 5. Attorney Eric Cardell commented, the school district is exploiting our civil rights legacy to avoid the school district voters. The school district should be teaching civil rights, not violating them. Thank you for your time.
Member Casper, is there anyone else there? If you would check, please. Thank you. Okay, thanks. Okay, superintendent's report. Reading communications. Go ahead, Mr. Gronseth.
Well, before I start, I just wanted to address the concerns of Mr. Piat and Mr. Lyman, and let you know that the Congdon plans have not been finalized at this point, and further community discussion and planning is going to take place, and hopefully we can get your input in that process as well. There were, two communications that Dr. Foster entered into the record. One was a copy of a letter addressed to the Duluth School Board from Charlotte Lee asking that the name of the new Eastern Middle School retain the name East. And a second letter addressed to the school board members from Dave Orgreen, Executive Director of USA Hockey, encouraging the board to explore every option possible to maintain all 3 sheets of ice at Congdon Park. and that is the communication that Dr. Foster entered. Other than that, I'd really like to take the opportunity to say a big thank you. Our community has opened 5 new schools, and the principals and students and staff and technology and facilities and construction workers have really gone above and beyond. And we've had an exceptional start to the year. Of course, with every project of this enormity, there's going to be some hiccups along the way. And we are working to address those, and we're thankful to the neighbors and the community members and everyone involved that's helping us to address these issues as they come up. And I assure you that we will continue to address these issues for what is best for our students and for our community as a whole. One of my favorite things among this whole thing has been the firsts along the way. The first day of school when we saw the kids coming in and they're all gaga-eyed over the new buildings and they're so excited. And the first recess when our elementary kids were out on those awesome playgrounds. And even the high school kids as they were hanging out in their atriums and their commons area at lunchtime and feeling very collegiate in their new setting. And last night was another new first. It was the first event in the East Auditorium, which I understand was an incredible event to behold. And I'm sorry that I missed it, but I heard it was a great event. And the other thing I want to do is I just want to encourage everyone who cares about education to get out and vote on November 8th. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Gronseth. It was a wonderful event last night. Great sound acoustics in that new auditorium. So I appreciate that. Okay, we're going to move on to report of the standing committees, and I'm going to turn it over to Member Wasson for the Education Committee meeting.
Board members, you all received a handout of the corrected Education Committee report, both in the mail and, or in your packet, and also tonight. So if you could get those out. Informational items. We received from Dr. Lake an assessment on our MCAs and adequate yearly progress results. Item 2 was an overall student achievement and achievement gap update by Dr. Foster. Item 3 was the review of the school calendar for the year 12-13, and there were no grant applications. Action items, I think I'll go through the report and come back. We first have the selecting a name for the East Middle School, and we have a resolution for the acceptance of grants, extended trip requests, and 3 diplomas. Jill Winbauer, Tanya Italian, and Ryan Nordberg, we'd like to say congratulations on your diplomas. Well done. Going back to the resolution for the acceptance of grants found on page 64, someplace in here. Yeah. It's a resolution. The Minnesota Statute 465.03 requires a school district to accept grants by resolution expressed in the terms prescribed by the donor in full and et cetera. We have Northland Foundation in the amount of $2,500 and Quest Foundation in the amount of $7,500. We appreciate that. I move resolution E1011-2938, October 18th, 2011.
Thank you, Member Wasson. Is there a second? Seconded by Member Casper. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of resolution E1011-2938 say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries 6-0. Okay, Member Wasson, if you want to continue.
And the last item would be the selecting a name for the new Eastern Middle School. I'd like to say that this has been a process that has evolved, and there has been quite a bit of discussion and feelings. I would like to make a motion that the Eastern Middle School be named Ordine East Middle School.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Member Casper. Is there any discussion? Member Grover.
Just give me a moment. That was moved by Member Wasson. Seconded by Member Casper. Thank you. Madam Chair, there have been a lot of discussions in the last year or more on this issue, and I think the main reason this hasn't come forward, even though we had a multitude of names suggested, was lack of board consensus, I guess. And I understand that even that carried forward to some degree to this very day with the I see the combining, recommended combining of Ordine and East names. I know there was strong sentiment suggested for both of them. It's interesting, the subject has come up that it's, kind of contentious, or it's been said that it's too contentious to name a school after someone. We should stick with places or neighborhoods or directions. So just for fun, I'm sorry, but I like this kind of thing. I made a list of schools in Duluth that have been and still are in existence, and it was quite interesting. Lots of presidents: Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Jackson, Lincoln, Grant. A couple of local educators: Denfeld and Laura MacArthur. Directions or locations: East, Central, West, Birchwood, Lakeside, Park Point, Piedmont, Lakewood, Riverside, Woodland, Kenwood. I'm not sure. That neighborhood is named after someone historically. I honestly don't know. Literary figures: Lowell, Stowe, Irving, Longfellow, Emerson, and Franklin, I believe, is Benjamin Franklin, so I put him in that category. Local impact, and this overlaps with neighborhoods, but it becomes kind of a chicken or egg thing. We have a lot of neighborhoods named after people, and then schools were either named simultaneously or subsequently as they were located. But we have schools named after Morgan, Ordine, Congdon, Leicester, Chester, Nettleton, Washburn, Cobb, Gunnison, Merritt, Bryant, Fairmont, I think. I know there was a school. I'm not sure if there was a person per se. Endian, Barnes, Homecroft again. I don't know if that was after a person. Ensign, and it was, I'm told. Okay. So I didn't count these up, but you can see there's a variety of names, some local, some national, many local areas, local educators. So we've done just about anything you can imagine in the past with school names. So one thing that stood out to me as I reviewed this list, though, as I put these down systematically, there were of these, 40 names, whatever, there were 2 women in there. Harriet Beecher Stowe for Stowe School. I'm pretty sure it was her that Stowe is named after, and the other would be Laura MacArthur. And Laura MacArthur was a beloved local, I guess, elementary teacher. And another thing that was noticeable to me in the context of the current discussion is that there's never been any acknowledgement of people of color, of whom we've had many in Duluth making contributions, as was pointed out by one of our speakers, not necessarily in terms of great monetary terms, but certainly in terms of effective and heartfelt and overwhelmingly unselfish contributions. So, Madam Chair, in recognition of that, I would like to move an amendment to Member Wasson's motion, and that would be to name the Eastern Middle School after Ruth Myers and Marge Wilkins, the Myers-Wilkins Middle School. And I'd like to read an extract from a communication we received as board members quite recently. It's got a little bit of length to it, but I think that it would be of interest to the general public to know a little bit more about these 2 women. And that would be if there is a second for my amendment.
Second.
Okay. Thank you. May I continue?
Okay, so this is an amendment to the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Each of us, I'm quoting here, each of us walks in the footsteps of many heroes who broke trail before us. I think of Ruth Myers and Marge Wilkins, two Duluth matriarchs who walked together in their lives that were dedicated to the education, well-being, and human dignity of all people. Their common interests and their willingness to lead and serve brought them together in the 1960s, and for decades they worked collaboratively and effectively. Marge and Ruth grew up in Duluth during the 1930s and 40s and were pillars of the educational, social, and political strengths that this region has built during and since then. Ruth became the first American Indian ever elected to public office in Duluth, Marge the first black woman graduate of St. Mary's School of Nursing, and later Duluth's first black anesthetist. These heroes served on boards and committees. They broke barriers in employment and education. They volunteered for 1,000 small tasks that uplifted others and improved lives. They took a frontline stand when courageous leadership was needed. They fed hungry people, obtained warm clothes and blankets for the cold. They guided, counseled, encouraged, and corrected. They visited with the lonely, gave comfort to the needy, encouraged and empowered us all. When thanked, they were quick to credit the contribution of their own elders and told us the best way to say thank you would be to pass the favor on, do something to help when we could. We would take their places one day, they said, assuring us that we could do it and that we would be ready. Their generosity of goods and spirit seemed limitless. Their circles of extended family and friends expanded every day. Marge and Ruth were known to many by the honorable joint title of the grandmothers. They considered themselves sisters and addressed one another that way. One of the memories of Marge and Ruth is of the two of them as elders walking together into a school board meeting. They walked side by side, acknowledging every person they knew with the same considerate nod and greeting, remembering to ask about a mother who had been ill, or a family's new baby, or a teacher's tenure award. Ruth once told me that in the early years, she and Marge had walked into school board meetings arm in arm, dressed bravely for the occasion in their good coats, hats, and high heels. Sometimes I thought I could hear our knees knocking, she said. I never suspected that, never imagined that they were anything but confident, capable, even formidable at times. What I know for sure is that they were always inspiring. When Ruth Myers and Marge Wilkins passed from this life, they left the world a better place for having lived and walked upon it. Madam Chair, what an honor it would be to the memory of these two trailblazing women to name our Eastern Middle School after them. And even more than that, more importantly than that, what an honor to the school itself, to all of Duluth, to the school district, which goes beyond Duluth's borders. What an honor for us to have an entity that would carry on the name and the memories of these two wonderful women. Thank you.
Okay, Marcus, you had Marcus, did you have your light on? Yeah, go ahead. Student Representative John, please.
I'd just like to make a quick point that I'm just happy that the school won't simply be called East High School at this point, just because I think that some sort of name associated with the school gives it some originality, something that distinguishes it a little more defined as it should be. So, thank you.
Member Casper.
First of all, I want to acknowledge Member Grover for the research and the effort that he put into to identifying the more than 40 schools that once dotted the landscape of Duluth in its heyday, and the efforts that went into that and the variety of names that were chosen. I'm very thankful that you've done that, and we're all more enlightened by your effort. And I also want to state that I am not opposed to the naming of a school after the wonderful women and pioneers that Member Grover has mentioned, and also an audience member. I just feel very strongly that what Mr. Ordine has done for this community over the last 80 plus years, well, in his life and beyond his life, over the last 100 years, for the betterment of this community. When he died in 1929, he left $1.2 million and its only prerequisite was that the money should be used for the needy. That was it. One sentence, and a foundation created and the money to be used for the needy. No strings attached, no his favorites. Over the last 80 years of that foundation's existence, it has donated or provided $63 million for the needy of Duluth. Just Duluth, nowhere else but Duluth. And some of those areas that have been funded, the Lake Superior Community Health to provide free health insurance for people who can't afford it. $350,000 just this year for that. The Union Gospel Mission, $50,000. Salvation Army, $130,000. Mentor Duluth, $120,000 just this year. Our Habitat program in our own school, the Ordine Foundation gives $40,000 a year to support our own program within our school. Over $200,000 a year for Duluth students who are needy that want to go to college. Just Duluth students to go to Lake Superior College or to go to St. Scholastica and receive a scholarship. The only two prerequisites to those children receiving that scholarship or that opportunity is they have to live in Duluth and they have to be needy. That's it. And to me, to remove that, as one of the members said, remove his name, he's, in my mind, I was honored yesterday to be involved in the rededication of a very special place in Duluth, a Duluth pioneer. And we had, of course, you probably all saw royalty come over from another country to recognize that, for that person's immigrant upbringing and his determination to be successful. Albert Ordine is that same person. His determination to make this community a better place and his desire in his passing to continue that effort to making the Duluth a better place has made Duluth a better place. $63 million that maybe he wasn't physically able to do the kinds of volunteer things he might have liked to have. But in his passing, he saw to it that places like the Chum Center received $50,000 a year, and Lifehouse Youth Center got $72,000 a year. And these are sustaining grants. These aren't one-time, here you go, take it, now what are you going to do next year? These are sustaining, so years and years of that money being provided to help exactly the kind of people that we'd like to see served and provide those resources. And the only prerequisite to that money was that they're needy. That's it. And to me, to remove that name, I just don't understand it. I think he should be upheld as one of those people that did maybe more than any Duluthian has done for the betterment of the entire community. And his efforts continue on today. This year alone, $1.9 million has been donated to these many, the YMCA, the Grant School Collaborative, Courage Duluth, programs to aid the victims of sexual assault, and it goes on and on. All because Albert Ordine saw 80 years ago that there were needs that were not being fulfilled by this community, and saw to it that those efforts would continue in his absence. And to remove his name, I just don't understand. So that's the reason why I'm supporting Ordine. It has nothing to do with anything else other than what I perceive as his legacy to this community, and us to continue to respect and honor that legacy. So thank you.
Member Glass.
Thank you. The naming of a school building, in my opinion, ought to be directed at an opportunity that we have to inspire the kids that go to that school building. they should be able to relate to some person, some happening, some events, and it's clear that if their memory was good for Mr. Ordine, I'm sure they'd see that. But in the reality of today's time, today's technology, I'm even a little worried that Myers-Wilkins isn't a timely type thing for them, although it is better than what has been proposed. If we want to inspire kids these days, we have to use every means that we have on our ability to take advantage of. And even in today's paper, there was one member called and said that we ought to consider the East graduate who passed away as an inspiration and perhaps add her name to the list for the East Middle School. This board had an opportunity to keep the Ordine name when it moved the East High School to the Ordine property and expanded the Ordine building. And I don't see anything that's inappropriate with the thought that an Ordine East High School wouldn't be an appropriate name, and to honor Mr. Ordine with that particular aspect. And I say that because it's bothered me for some time, and I didn't vote for the high school to be named that at a year ago when this board made that decision. But I Googled the term East High School, and I was shocked to see that it hit over 400 million hits with East High School. If I used Duluth High School, there was only 1 million, and they were all Duluth High School references. So a name does mean a lot, and if you name something that has no local connection or doesn't have a way to inspire kids, you've missed that opportunity. So I guess I'm speaking in support of the amendment rather than the original, because I do think we need to use every means that we have available to inspire kids to doing the right thing, to doing better things, to participating in the educational process in every way that they can. And I guess that's what I see, and that's why I would support the amendment.
Okay, we're going to vote on the amendment.
Madam Chair.
Member Johnston.
Yeah, I'd like to make a few comments too. When this first came up, I didn't have a lot of strong feelings one way or another. But as members of the community came forward, contacted me, spoke to this board over the last few months, to me it was quite clear that I think the community wanted what's in the amendment here from Member Grover to name this school Myers-Wilkins after them and honor them. And again, I still wasn't sure. But then I started getting peculiar emails, I thought were peculiar, at home, that indicated, say, for example, Myers didn't graduate from high school. As if this was really bad. Well, I looked into it and found out that, well, she hadn't graduated from high school, but she did have an honorary degree from University of Minnesota, Duluth. And I'm thinking, why are people sending me these peculiar emails that's clearly I thought not appropriate? And this incidentally came from an academic. And so there seemed to be something going on out there, which I was real concerned about. Again, I don't have a problem with Mr. Ordine. He sounds like a very great man. He's going to continue doing great things for our community. But I really think that it is time that we do look at this. I think, as Member Glass said, I think it would inspire children. I think that's, we have to do that. These are two very, I think, noble women that grew up in Duluth, that did a lot for education, including being on the board, being on many education boards throughout the state, and made a influence on Duluth. for that reason, I have decided that I think it's imperative that that we, as a school district, honor some of our other minority citizens. And I think this would be a very honorable way to do that.
Okay, we're getting ready to vote on the amendment that Member Grover said. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. So that is, let's see, 3-3. So the amendment fails. So the original motion that Member Wasson made of Ordine East Middle School. Any more discussion? Member Johnston.
Yeah, I would like to make a couple comments on the process here. I did send a email to the chair. You're asking for who was on the committee that made these recommendations and what their recommendation was. I see what their recommendation was. I did want to, usually I expect to see reports. The very quick thing indicated to me there was only 2 names that were even talked about, and that certainly concerned me that this committee recommendation only had 2 names on it. That's all I've seen. I'm thinking Mr. Granthus is going to correct me, but I think some of that report should have been given to the board, and I wish it would have been ahead of time, because I would like to know, tell the truth, I've never seen anything who was even on that committee. And Bill, go ahead. I think you have a correction for me, so then I'll come back.
I just have some information from Dr. Foster that he called me this afternoon, and I hope he's feeling better soon. He's feeling pretty rough today, but he did want to send me with some information regarding this topic, because he knew that all of you would probably have some questions about the process that was that took place for the naming of the middle school committee. He did try to reconvene the original committee of, I believe it was 7 people on late last week, and was unable to get people in person for that meeting. And so he sent out a request about information on the names, the 2 top names that they would like to see on the Eastern Middle School. And then from that list of, 14, he took the results and then submitted that as a recommendation. So the top 2 vote getters, if you will, from that committee were East and Ordine, although there were other names recommended by people on the committee as well. Originally, you had asked me to get some legal advice from Councillor Storsley, and Dr. Foster did have that, but didn't have a chance to share it with the committee, in that this isn't necessarily a case of renaming a school, because it is an existing building that was never officially closed, that legally its name right now, if nothing were done, would be East. Because if you change the configuration of students, it doesn't matter. It's still the same building. And so this is really a case of renaming an existing school, much like we did with the other schools that were renamed. I hope that's helpful.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Ronson.
Thank you,
Member
Mr.
Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. Gronseth. I would like to make a motion to postpone this resolution until the next meeting.
What was that?
Yes, I'm making a motion to postpone the resolution until the next meeting.
I think you have a motion on the floor.
We have a motion on the floor right now.
Yes, I'm asking to postpone that motion. It's in the line of motions you want to look up in the Robert's Rules of Order. You can amend it. It's a form of amendment if you want to call it that, but it's usually called postponing.
So we vote on that, right? Are you seconding that, Gary? Sure. Okay. So any more discussion?
Is that specific to the November meeting? Correct.
Till, yes, the November regular meeting.
Okay. Casper, go ahead.
Just a point of clarification from Mr. Gronseth. So if these continue to fail and we proceed, that building will be continued to be named East?
Correct. If nothing is done to rename it, its name is currently East.
And if these continue to fail,
I'm not
what
sure
measure would have to, we don't know the measure to bring a name back up at a later date? Would that need unanimous support, or how would that?
We don't, or you don't, have a policy for renaming a school, so the process that you would undertake would be up to the board. So you could decide how you want to go about that, because you currently don't have a policy and there isn't any statute regarding the renaming of a school. That's a local decision.
Thank you.
Member Johnston?
Madam Chair, one reason I'm asking for this postponement is one of our members, Member Cameron, could not be here tonight. She is a minority. I think that in itself should say that we should postpone this until the next meeting, because I think it's very important, symbolic as well as the right thing to do.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and vote on postponing this decision. Correct? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. So that's 3-3 again, and it fails. I want to make just a couple of comments, because we've received a lot of emails and letters about this, and actually phone calls. I think we followed a process. You know, we actually didn't follow a process for the other schools, or even the new Western Middle School, which is on a brand new site, but kept the same name. So we followed a process for this, and 2 names rose up, and I think it's hard for the committee to pick between the 2. So this seems like a good compromise. I have heard from so many of my constituents that want it Ordine, and so many that want it East. And I think this is actually a pretty good compromise. So I'm going to go ahead and ask for a vote on this also. And I think what I want to do on this motion, the original motion to name it Ordine East, is ask for a roll call vote. Member Grover. So if we could do that, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Member Cameron is absent. Member Glass?
What are you asking for the vote?
The original motion. Yep.
No.
I vote no. Member Johnston?
No.
Member Casper?
Yes.
Member Saliga Punko?
Yes.
And Member Wasson?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Okay, thank you, Member Grover. So,
No,
I'm
that's
sorry.
okay, but I'm also asking to be recognized.
Okay, so that fails. So, Member Grover, go ahead.
Okay, Madam Chair, I move that we move this forward to the November agenda, not postponing action, but since we're at an impasse, moving it forward for further consideration in November.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. Are you talking about the November meeting?
Yes. November board meeting.
November board meeting.
On the 15th, yes.
November 15th. Did you want to say something, Mr. Ronstadt, or no? Okay, Member Johnston.
Madam Chair, asking for that does not require a motion, and you can make that request, and a motion is not needed. You can give notice to the board that you want that to be on the next meeting, so it's not necessary to have a vote.
Hold on a sec, I just got to check.
It's not going to be on there.
So I don't know if you can do that, can you? Don't we have to just make a motion to postpone? Isn't that how it is, I think?
We already moved that.
Madam Chair, I would...
Go
we
ahead,
could have...
Member Johnston.
and we could have a vote, that's okay. But if the vote loses the request, I would suggest that Member Grover, again, make that request notice to the board, and that, according to our rules here, that would have to come up anyway. Doesn't mean we can't vote on it, but if it votes an affirmative, then it would be on. If it loses, it would still be on.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I think this would require unanimous consent, but I would like to withdraw my motion.
Okay, thank you. So the motion has
ask if
been...
anyone
Okay,
objects to
does
that.
anyone object to that? Thank you.
Okay, and then, Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
I will bring this forward, assuming I have a second from another board member. I'll bring it forward for consideration at next month's agenda meeting, the subject.
Second.
The general subject. And that, I'm not asking for a second. I'm just saying that that's what I will do. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm just not sure if we need to send this back to committee or just postpone.
At your discretion.
Yeah, I don't, do I have to have a motion to send this back to committee? No. I think I'm going to refer this back to committee then, and can finish their work since they didn't meet. So, okay, we're going to move, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
Mr. Gonza.
When you ask that it goes back to committee, are you asking for further recommendation from that committee?
Oh, that's a good point.
Let the committee deliberate and come to a decision.
We could let the committee get together and expand it. Okay, Member Johnston.
Well, Madam Chair, just a recommendation would be, I mean, it certainly, if you'd like to put it back to committee, it could. The committee has done their work. Again, I would kind of like to get that full report, but just reminding the board that the board is the one that will be making the final decision here, not the committee. And I'm not sure it's going to help to go back to committee. It's certainly okay, but just remember that we, as a board, will make that final decision.
Right.
Okay, well, maybe, should we just make a decision to postpone or just refer it back to committee? I guess maybe we'll just do that. Right, we are done. Thank you, Member Grover. Let's, do we have the rest of the education report to approve? I think we've already, I think we did all of it. We just need to vote on the rest of it.
Was it, Madam Chair, was it moved?
It was, yes.
Report as a whole?
And seconded by Member Casper.
Okay, thank you.
So if there's no further discussion, let's, Member Casper, sorry.
Yes, I would, Ms. Lake did a wonderful presentation on the comprehensive assessment and the MCAs for adequate yearly progress, and I'd like to make a request if I could get those in color rather than black and white in our document. It's much easier for me to read in color, so if I could get that from you, I would appreciate it.
Paper copy, electronic copy?
Either way is fine.
Either way, okay.
All right, thank
Sure.
you.
Yep.
Okay, Member Glass, sure.
Yes, I would also like to comment on the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessments for Adequate Yearly Progress that Tanya Lake gave us a summary of. It appeared in that summary that we still don't have any type of comments by the faculty who were implementing these tests and who provided extensive documentation when they picked and brought forward the new reading curriculum a couple of years ago. And then another committee worked on the mathematics selection for several years and brought forward a new program in math. It seems to me we need to get back to the instructors, the teachers that are actually using the new materials. And I believe in the case of the reading materials, we spent over $800,000 for new books and materials for reading, and something slightly less than that additional for the math. It didn't satisfy me that we didn't have an input from the teachers relevant to how the students did and what possible improvements or explanation that we would have from the people that are actually responsible for training the students. And so, do you have any plans to contact the teachers and perhaps go over with them the curriculum?
I think I can answer that question for you. Certainly, our curriculum is a constant conversation that we have, and staff development with our teachers in both areas of reading and math and science and overall teaching strategies are always a goal of ours to improve our techniques and our strategies. Very often with new curriculum, such as our math and our reading, it takes a while to get a staff as large as ours all up to speed on best practices with those materials, and certainly that is something that we are improving with all the time. Keep in mind that when these MCA scores came out, Dr. Casilius also put out a letter of information reminding everyone in the state that these tests may be a flawed way of measuring our students, that it really doesn't show us how good our schools are. Very often our schools can be doing very well and come up as not meeting AYP because of the very complex way of measuring schools according to AYP. So certainly we will continue having those conversations with our teachers. We'll continue defining best practice as a district and helping our students to achieve higher and higher goals as we go along, and as we work with the state and the federal level to find perhaps a better way to measure our students that is based on growth measures from year to year on each student.
So does that mean that you've heard from the teachers and they've interpreted these results, or that you're waiting for the same thing I am, as to hear from the teachers to see whether or not the materials that we're using, the kids got it, but the tests weren't appropriate?
We also use local assessments, so we have local benchmarks that we also have access to on each and every student. And so these scores are one dipstick measurement of where students are on this day. We use our local benchmarks on a much more ongoing basis. And so the feedback that families get from their students' teachers are probably the best measure families can use to describe the progress of their own student. Certainly we monitor those scores as well as a district and have monthly conversations with our teachers and our principals and our instructional data coaches on where each and every student is and how we can help them. And very often our curriculum is part of that conversation and what interventions we need to supplement those materials to help the specific needs of each student.
So we're on the right track.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to vote on the remainder of the Education Committee. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries 6-0. And we're going to move on to the Human Resources Committee report. And since Member Cameron isn't here, she's our chair, we're going to, Mr. Casper. Member Casper would like to do that.
I'll try to do my best in her absence. This is the Human Resources report for Tuesday, October 18th, 2011. We had, under staffing report items, we had 6 certified appointments, 168 certified co-curriculars, 2 certified extensions, 5 certified leaves, 4 certified long-term subs, 2 certified permanent increases, 12 certified recalls from layoff, which is great news, 1 certified retirement, and I'll say something about that in a minute, 1 certified summer school, 2 certified temporary decreases, 10 certified temporary increases, 1 non-certified appointment, 1 non-certified demotion, 8 non-certified leaves, 3 non-certified permanent increases, 6 non-certified permanent or decreases, 6 non-certified permanent increases, 2 non-certified promotion, 5 non-certified recall, which is great news as well, 4 non-certified resignations, 1 non-certified temporary decrease, 1 non-certified temporary termination, and 10 non-certified temporary increases. Pardon me? Yes, if we can vote on that, I do have one comment. Sadly, under our certified retirements, one of our principals is retiring after many years of serving the district, and she has done just an outstanding job. And I would like to publicly recognize her and thank Mrs. Sauter for her years and years of commitment, both as a teacher and an administrator in this district. She will be missed by her students, by her staff, and by all of us in the community. So thank you, Ms. Sauter, for your years of dedication to ISD 709.
Thanks, Member Casper. Okay, go ahead.
I move this part of the agenda forward for a vote.
Can I have a second on that? Seconded by Member Wass. And is there any discussion on this? Member Glass.
Yes, I have a couple of remaining questions. I asked a number of questions at the meeting last week, but I'm still not satisfied that I'm understanding the certified co-curriculars. Of the 168 that are named, I did a quick count, and there are 90 of them designated for East and 75 for Denfeld. Do you have any quick explanation why the substantial difference between the two?
This would not be the comprehensive end-all list. There are still some that may be coming in. There could be some other positions that have not been named for other coaching positions that might be open right now. So for the most part, if we have, for instance, a coach who's a teacher in the district that we know will be coaching baseball, their name might be going through right now, but if the other school has their baseball open, there would not be a name going through. So I guess what I'm saying is on the co-curricular, all the co-curriculars are available to both high schools and to both middle schools. Are identical. Nobody has one more than the other does, except for where they have combined teams. It just means there might not be somebody named to that at this time. That might be named at a later date.
Okay. And then the other disparity seemed to be in the terms of elementary schools. There were only 2 named for having technology coordinators, and I was curious as to why that is.
Yeah, those are the only 2 names submitted at this time. There will be other names probably submitted as the year goes on.
Okay. And these names of people that are already in place and working, or are these about to be put in line?
For the most part, they're in place and working, unless it is a sport that's taking place, for instance, in winter or spring. Yes.
Okay, and how about the 2 names that are named in a lawsuit for bullying, dealing with the hockey program at East? Are those 2 people on this list to be hired?
I'm sorry, which names?
They're the hockey program at East, women's hockey program. They're named in a lawsuit that we got 2 months ago. Are they been exonerated, or are they suspended from play?
This would not be the appropriate time to speak to that.
But if their names are on here, we're going to be putting them in through for hiring, correct?
If their names are on here, we would be approving them for the stipend, yes.
Okay.
Member Casper?
Yes, Mr. Swirsky, could you tell me now, with the certified rehires, how many current total equivalent FTEs do we have on our layoff of certified?
I will speak to the certified. I believe Mr. Dudley has also the non-certified, but of the 35 tenured teachers that were laid off, which represented 23.5 FTE, we have recalled 24 individuals that represent 11.5 FTE, so that's approximately about half.
So we still have about 12, the equivalent of 12 FTEs of certified that are currently in a layoff status?
Yes. In addition to that, I would say of that tenured staff, 5 individuals have chosen to remain on layoff at the time of their recall, and because they had taken some other positions. Additionally, I would say on the non-tenured staff that we did terminate last spring, we have rehired 4 of those, 4 of the 11.5 FTE. So
in non-certified?
No, I'm sorry, in the certified that were non-tenured.
Oh, excuse me.
So.
Okay, thank you. And same question, Mr. Dudley, as far as non-certified staff?
With the non-certified side, it's a little different because it's multiple units that I have to deal with. But a total FTE of 26.732 was the initial change at the beginning of the school year, and up to today, for that total FTE, we have recalled 5.3, which is, and it's sort of different because with the para unit, we have 0.4s and 0.5, so it could be approximately 6 people we bring back versus for that 0.5 or 0.4 versus bring back 4 for for 1.0 FTE.
So we have about the equivalent of 20 FTEs and non-certified approximately that are currently on layoff status, and 12 certified FTEs. So 12 certified and 20 non-certified FTEs, give or take. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Member Johnston.
Madam Chair, just a real quick thing here, and I don't expect the answer now, but it seems like we've talked about it. It'd be really handy for us as a board to have total FTEs and how that's changing, and maybe even getting a history of that up to now. And it's really good to see some layoffs coming back. But again, it doesn't have to be part of the board minutes or board book here at all, but at least get something to us about how much the FTEs have changed over time, and more important, currently now are we going up or down, that kind of stuff. So I'd appreciate that. Here we can talk later about it.
We do a report annually to the state, and actually we start doing our reporting in October, and I think the first brush is finalized in November sometime, and that's a historical comparison, so I find that actually from a year to year the most accurate, because it's always a snapshot basically within the same week, and I'd be more than happy to provide that to you.
That'd be great.
Okay, Board, it looks like we're ready to vote on that number 1, staffing report action items. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries 6-0. And Member Casper, if you would continue with number 2.
Okay. Number 2 is the approval of the increase of hourly rates for retired employees / laid off clerical.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Or, you made a motion, right?
Yes.
Okay, seconded by Member Grover. Is there any discussion on that? I know we had good discussion last week. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay, that carries 5-1. Member Casper?
Okay, the approval of Sarah Ulmer, individual contract, Minnesota Alliance for Youth, Director of Education and Training. And we have a contract that details that, and from my understanding, this is an in and out kind of thing where we receive compensation and we turn around, we do some administration for it is all, right?
Right.
Okay.
So that's your motion,
That's
right? Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Member Wasson. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries 6-0. And the next one?
Next one is the approval of a new position, the Curriculum and Instruction Coordinator, and we have a job attachment with that as well, and we had some discussion on that at our board meeting or at a committee meeting regarding that. So, and that is a replacement of an existing and a bit of a change to the direction of that. So I move that forward as well.
Thank you, Member Casper. Is there a second? Okay, seconded by Member Wasson. And, okay, Member Grover, go ahead.
I have a question pertains to both this and the following item. It's really not super clear in what we're doing, to me at least, that we're authorizing the filling of both of these positions. That is the intent, is it not? I mean, Tim Swirsky, do you feel that you have adequate, documented, clear direction, authorization from the board as these items are written? One of them is just a redoing of a job description.
Well, I think if you notice, and I know we're not on to D, but one is a revised job description. There was basically that position is previously approved and we tweaked it, but we just wanted to make sure it went by the board so they understood that we were tweaking that. So that is already set up and in there.
Wasn't that written out of the budget, though, that we approved in June? Wasn't that one of the things that was going to go unfilled in June?
Yes.
So then don't we need some clear, wouldn't you like some clear authorization from the board on both these items? I mean, one of them is just creating a position, not authorizing hiring, filling it. And to me, it seems like there's a fine but definite line there.
I agree with what you're saying. I think in this case, that is why we have the requisitions included with these positions, because that demonstrates...
Well, I was wondering about that, but
yeah.
There's another requisition there? I missed the second requisition. All right, okay. If that works for you, it works for me. So, thank you.
Okay, Member Johnston.
Yeah, I'm going to be supporting these. But I do have to say that, the biggest thing that calls I get from parents are large class sizes. And this, I'm taking your advice on it here that we need these positions. But just have to say here, and I will be voting for them because I want to continue what Ivy's starting here, I think, and that's good. But it does concern me a little bit that these aren't going to help reduce class size. So I've got to express that to both of you here, and I'll be supporting it. But I'd rather have them go to classrooms. Actually, I hope we can get some of those classroom sizes down.
Member Glass.
Yes, both of these are adding non-teaching staff to the district. And I was just curious myself if there is other ways of getting the jobs done that are needed by these things, particularly the curriculum and instructor coordinator. Right now, it would seem that the principal would have to do a lot of that work and be the person that does the coordination with the coaches and the other types of staff, and they would be peculiar for their own buildings to account for the necessary coordination that is needed. When I reviewed the number of classes that have 30 and more students per class, it seems to me that we still have a major problem with the number of instructors. We need more. And so if I'm going to appropriate money that for a job that can be done by other means, while I still need money for teachers, I don't feel that that's an appropriate thing at this time. The other position is for a federal program supervisor and a grant writer. If you were to use the team approach and put out a request to the teachers who would be interested in participating in grants, those teachers could be a centerfold for the assistant superintendent to lead the team. rather than have another person do that. And I recognize that would keep him in the loop, it would keep him informed, but more importantly, it would draw on the teachers who would be actually those that would be implementing the grant once it was to be gotten, rather than for the grant writer to be shopping around to find somebody to do the work. And so I think we ought to be thinking that these two things would be nice, but they're really not needed when we have the overload in the classes, some reaching 40 students or more. I think that's just not right, and I won't support these as long as we've got that type of a need in the classroom.
While I don't disagree with a lot of what you said, and you know, we do have teachers going out for grants all the time. We have head of programs going out for grants all the time. The specific grants that this person would go for would be on a district-wide level, hopefully in the tune of 6 to 7 digits when we're going for district-wide grants. Also, this the curriculum work that the curriculum and instructor coordinator does is not on a building level. Certainly our principals are instructional leaders in every building, and they work to implement the district curriculum into their schools and help their teachers to better understand the curriculum and to work together to find best practices. However, their role is not to work on the curriculum on a district level. They more implement the curriculum that is in place, and this person is the person who oversees all curriculum in the district. That includes working with the state and federal departments on initiatives that come from those departments, such as the Minnesota Common Core curriculum, and redefining all of our courses to align with state requirements. And also they are the person who convenes groups of teachers in each curriculum area to work on our curriculum, to review it, to review new materials, to make materials adoptions. And so that's the person who really makes sure that all of the work that we're doing in the district curriculum-wise matches and is a cohesive statement about what our curriculum is and what we want our students to know and to know how to do. And so this is a very important role, as well as the role of principals and teachers throughout the district and the work that they do on curriculum. But we really need somebody who comes to work every day and looks at our curriculum from a district point of view and not just a classroom or a school point of view. The other piece with the federal programs and grant writers, sorry, I'm kind of going back and forth here. The federal programs coordinator is in charge of all of our title programs and federal programs such as ELL, Gifted and Talented, Homeless, Homebound, Homeschool, Title I, Title II. I'm not sure how many more programs. So this is a huge undertaking, which we do often pull in teachers and principals to help us with. But this person also makes sure that we are following all of the federal guidelines for this money, and they are also responsible for writing the huge federal grant that gets us all of our title funds. And if we don't have the right person in charge of that and watching all of those details, we could very well lose that type of funding. So these are very important jobs. And while, yes, I am involved in all of these pieces, I also have many other duties and don't always have the time to spend on the massive amount of detail associated with both of these positions.
Thank you, Mr. Gronseth. I do want to echo a little bit, too. I will support these, but I am concerned. We do have still a few hot spots. I mean, I've talked to a few parents right now, and I know there's some huge class sizes, way over 40, still at East. And it would be nice to have those looked at, please, so I can talk to you about those. Okay, we're ready to vote on, it was letter C, approval of the new position, curriculum and instruction coordinator, which is pretty much what we had before. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Okay, that carries 5-1. And Member Casper.
Item D is the approval of a revised job description for the federal program supervisor/grant writer, and we also have an attached job description and requisition for that. I move that forward for consideration.
Thank you. And seconded by Member Wasson. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Okay, that carries 5-1. And I think, Member Casper, go ahead.
Yes, there are no further informational items and no future items on the agenda at this time, so I move the remainder of the agenda forward.
I think actually we did it all. We did all. Yep, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the business report. Member Grover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Section 1 is the recurring monthly financial reports, and for the first time this year, first time in several months, we have our weighted average daily membership projections. That's standard for them to resume in October. We have one bid, and that is for district-wide snow plowing services. Recommendation is to, this is for several sites, recommendation is to hire JW Hauling for $10,450. We have one policy suspension recommendation. That is bylaw 9095, which is the order of business of our board meetings, and this is for a 3-month period, November, if it's approved, November, December, and January, a trial version of a new agenda format. Contracts, change orders, and leases. We have 3 contracts recommended for approval. The first is a Delta Dental renewal. Second, life and accidental death and dismemberment and long-term disability insurance renewal from ING. And third and final, a health reimbursement arrangement, 125 Flex Plan 403B, third-party administrators renewal with, let's see, that would be with Educator Benefits Consultant Company. And then following that is a list of change orders that require board approval, a number at Denfeld, and I guess it's just one at East recommended for approval. And we have a resolution which we'll come back to, and item 6 is the typical monthly informational items. There was nothing out of the ordinary there, the recurring monthly informational items. Madam Chair, would you like me to do the resolution first, or does it matter?
Doesn't matter. What would you like to do?
I thought maybe the report as a whole then.
Okay.
I will move the report as a whole with the exception of the resolution 5A.
Thank you, Member Grover. Is there a seconded by Member Casper? Okay, so the whole report except for the resolution. Is there any items that questions? Member Glass.
Yes, 1A and B.
A and B, okay.
And 3A1.
3A1. Okay. Member Johnston?
1F. 3A1, that was already said. 4A1.
4A1.
4A3.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Okay, we'll start out with 1A. Member Glass.
Yes, on the financial report, page 18, actually page 19, we show transfers in and out of the capital expenditures. What's the justification for the money going in and out of those funds to the debt service fund?
Mr. Glass, this financial report represents the board-approved adopted budget. Those transfers that are showing in as far as in and out were on the adopted budget that the board approved back in June. And this particular report is just reflecting that those are budgeted items to be considered in the future.
So they're all needed to get into the debt service to make interest and principal payments for debt service?
The amount that's leaving Fund 1 is the general fund savings according to the long-range facility plan that's been approved. Those funds go into a designated account into Fund 5, which is the capital expenditure account. The capital expenditure account is accumulating dollars both from property sales, well, from multiple sources, but property sales, general fund savings, and rebates. And again, according to the schedule, $4,500,000 will be transferred to the debt service fund.
From the capital fund?
From the designated account in the capital fund, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Member Johnston?
Yeah, I didn't understand that again. Sorry, but the $4.5 million, that is going out of what to what again?
The $4.5 million reflected on the report is the what was board approved and adopted back in June. Again, those funds are accumulation of dollars from general fund savings, property sales, and rebates that are obtained as a result of efficiencies in the long-range facility plan. We get those rebates from electric companies and that.
Is that the one then that we're going to be eventually going, which I asked to have on the meeting today about how much is going to be transferred from the general fund to the long-range facility plan? Is that one, or is that something else?
No, I believe that probably is one and the same.
Okay.
And we'll be doing that in the future.
Okay, so then I was correct. It was about $4.6 million then is what will be going from the general fund then to this.
We'll be going from the designated account, which is accumulation of funds from many sources.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to 1B. Member Glass, your question.
Yes, 1B is the vouchers for August, and I had a question on the fact that we're spending $17,000 again on 3 different attorney firms, and Mr. Hansen was kind enough to enlighten me as to what departments they came out of, but it still isn't clear that that the work product is something that we can't find another way to get. We have to find a way to keep our monthly payments down for things that we don't need for educating students. JCI this month of August is going to be paid another $1 million for the no-bid contract that they have to implement the RED plan. I did see one thing for the assistant superintendent, Archipelago Learning for $44,000. Is that something to do with curriculum? Archipelago Learning Incorporated, $44,220. That was my only unanswered question, because I also had asked the fact that we're spending at least $1.2 million paying off either property or capital interest on our facilities plan out of the same monthly payment. The total vouchers for the month of August were $16,334,000. So you don't need to answer the archipelago thing, but that just popped up as a curiosity.
Could you remind me what the amount was?
$44,221.34. Figured you might remember that, but maybe not.
I believe it is something that our reading and math curriculum people ordered with some carryover funds, but I will check on that. I was aware that they were making a large purchase, but I wasn't sure about the company name or the exact amount, but I can check on that for you.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, I've been reporting out the monthly vouchers to the Johnson Controls company for every month since I've been on the board, and we've yet to have a total summation. So I guess at this time, I'll be asking for that for the next meeting. I'd like to know what the total that JCI has received in the monthly vouchers since they have been so gracious to take on this contract with no bid and no upper limit. I need to know what the total is as of the next board meeting. Thank you.
We're going to move on to 1F. Member Johnston.
Sure, just a quick understanding here, Mr. Hanson, and again, thanks for getting this up again, and on the start of the year here. I was looking back a year, and I know we've talked a lot about, we've had an increase in the ADMs, or the WADMs, and that was an increase. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, about we actually projected on the budget we had that was going to be less. We've had an increase in the projection. I think that's what we've talked about. We've had an increase here, and I think if I'm looking at this right, comparing it, the numbers are pretty much the same as last year. We haven't really changed, but we had an increase in the projection. On the budget, that's why we had, that we were able to hire some more teachers. Is that about right?
Yes, that's right. I would call your attention to the projected WADM column, and just to note that the budget was created on the number 10,138.61, and we're based on the October 1st enrollments and projecting them forward with some, using some historical trend data that we have. We're projecting at least at this point 10,388, so a surplus of almost 250 WADM at this point for this year. And that number will change as we continue to go through the year, and the numbers become a little more, a little easier to project, hopefully, but always difficult to project, I guess I'd say.
Yeah, I know it's hard, but right now we're about the same, though we haven't really increased as students compared to last year. I just went and looked at last October's, and we're pretty much the same as that. Is that correct?
And the change has been very small from last year, which is the good news, because we had projected actually a bigger decrease, obviously. So.
Okay, good. Just this is a technical question, but I've pulled out the calculator, and should the column under projected WADMs, should that equal one of those numbers at the bottom? I know it didn't, but I thought all those numbers added up there would equal that 10,388. But I know it's a dent, and I don't know if it's supposed to, but a minor point. But
the resident tuition data with the double asterisk is noted at the bottom that it's already included in the grade level projections that are up in the top section. So we don't add that resident tuition number of 43.46 in again. So that's already included up in the 10,074 up above.
And same with ALC then too, that's not added in either, is that what that means?
No, ALC, oh yes, I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to 3A1. Member Glass.
Yes, I was going to make a point of order on this one in particular because we decided at the committee meeting to leave a couple of items in, and that is not reflected in what we've got in the packet of 28, or don't you recall that? The item number 6, the communications and petitions presentation, is to be deleted. And when I look back over the long list of purposes for which that item reflects as described in our policies and bylaws, the 1000 series and the 2000 series. The dealing with the public comes out as a rather extensive responsibility of this board, and one of the only places that it comes into our purview is during this meeting, the official monthly meeting, for which then we get a report or comment on by the superintendent. And if we're going to remove that as part of our revision, then I argued at the Monday meeting that that should be left in, and I thought the group agreed that that was to be left in. And then I've got a couple of other items, but if you like, Madam Chair, we could have a separate vote on this item
We could do that. Do you want to vote on that right now?
after I tell you about the other changes.
Okay, go ahead.
When I understood the superintendent's purpose for wanting to streamline the business, he said about the questions and other, that would be taken up as part of each of the standing committees. And so when each standing committee finished with its report, we would answer questions and other after each one of those. That was my understanding of the conversation we had with him, but I didn't understand that you all were necessarily agreeing with that. This is another place where this board has almost always brought to it public announcements, other questions that I'm sure will just bubble out at any time if we don't have a spot on the agenda for them. But there's another thing that we shouldn't at least not have a spot for, is that when the board does have questions, that we do get things answered or asked, and maybe not answered, but at least asked. We can do that as part of each of the standing committees, but that would subdivide the questions, although I guess it could work there just as well. So that's another question that I had. Was that your understanding, that each committee then would have a question and other section as part of it? And my reason for dwelling on this is that this is a very long-standing format for the order of business, and the public and we are only used to this format. Now we're asked to be making some fundamental changes in this, and so I'm trying to understand how I'm going to operate for my last 3 months, so that I clearly know what is expected of me.
I think Member Glass that Dr. Foster just wanted to try something, and it's just for 3 months to try it.
Well, what it was is what I was trying to understand. Maybe Bill can comment on what his understanding is.
Go ahead.
And what this really does is it moves all of the informational items, as I think you understand, to the committee meetings. And so the discussions we have in committee meetings would go on, where you are more than free to ask questions and discuss what's going on. And then the action items would remain on this agenda and would work much as they do now. There's where there's motions and discussion, and that would be an opportunity for you to discuss any of the action items that were on there. So I understand what you mean, that there be a question other under each section, but I think if you had questions about any of the action items on the agenda, you would have an opportunity to do that within the discussion of those items.
Well, and that's the normal state for those committees. but this was if you had something that wasn't related to those action items. Because by and large, we have other announcements and other questions that people introduce that haven't been brought up at the committees because they weren't on the agenda.
So, I'm sorry, are you looking for a venue to bring up things that aren't on the agenda?
Well, that's what we presently use this other for, questions and other.
And that questions and other at the end could fit into any category?
Usually. I mean, it might be an announcement of some happening, or some conclusion, or the fact that the roof is still leaking. Little things like that. And
not at the moment.
And my last concern is that under no circumstances are we doing anything with the last paragraph. We're not suspending the use of Robert's rules, newly revised. That's part of this order of business for regular meetings, because the Robert's rules does control all the other parameters that relate to the order of business. And so we certainly don't want to throw the rule book out with the first 10 items. So is that your understanding? We're still retaining Robert's rules?
We follow Robert's rules third, after state statute, board practice, and then Robert's rules. So
we're not suspending Robert's rules here?
Just doing what we've always done, as far as I know.
Okay. So then I would simply amend this so that we would have the understanding that we have, that we would leave in the section dealing with communications and petitions, and that the rest, I guess, can be as he's written it.
Did you want to leave in the last paragraphs?
Or? The last paragraph stays. And also item number 7, 6. Item number 6, communications and petitions, etc. There's no other place that they normally come in to, because they're normally not being dealt with in either or all three committees, unless you tell me that that's what he wants to do. He wants to funnel these materials to the committee chairs so they present that information. Do you think that's what he wants?
I think the committee meetings. I think that's what it is.
Okay. Well, I have enough questions that I'm not going to support this until I understand what it is.
Okay. Any more? Let's see. Member Johnston, go ahead.
Just some clarifications. Member Glass would have a point of order, and I think your intent there was, Gary, was to, I think you made the question, this is kind of thrown out to the board members, I'm not sure what's going on. So I thought Gary said that he thought that the committee had decided to leave, you said correspondences were supposed to be in there, I think, or is that, I'm just wondering, was that a consensus? I wasn't at that committee. If it's not, I would suggest that Member Glass bring that up as an amendment. Unless somebody thinks there was a consensus at that committee to do that. I'm just talking about procedure here, how to handle Member Glass's point of order.
You know, unfortunately, Dr. Foster isn't here to ask, so I'm not really sure. Maybe we should just...
I would suggest he maybe make a motion then, if I would suggest on that item at least to amend it. I mean, a motion to amend.
Well, maybe, I don't know if we should amend, but Member Grover, did you want to address this?
This has gotten murky enough, and Dr. Foster was the mover of this. It was his initiative, and he's not here to speak to these technical issues tonight, which are important. So I would suggest, I'm going to move that we postpone this item till next month. That
would be good.
Or would you rather?
I think it's a good idea personally, because we can't seem to answer some of these things. I would support that.
We're kind of bogged down in this discussion right now with because we don't have clarity from the person who was bringing this forward. So I will move that.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Gronseth, did you want to address that or no? Okay.
I was just going to say that I would support that too. I have an idea of what Dr. Foster was intending, but I don't want to misspeak and have it be part of a formal motion. So.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to postpone. Okay, that's okay, and that's moved by Member Grover, seconded by Member Johnston. Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries 6-0. Okay, we're going to move on to 4A1, Member Johnston.
Yeah, going on page 33, it wasn't really quite clear. I think, is this a contract, or it says on the first sentence there, the ASO fee remains the same at $255. This is what we're paying this contractor who is administering the dental plan. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's the fee that we pay to Delta. They process the claims, and that also qualifies us to be in the network that they have, which is valuable for us.
Okay. Is there any change in the premiums that we or employees have to pay?
We are the last sentence within the recommendation. We talked briefly about this at the committee meeting, but we are suggesting that we impose a 3% increase to it's basically an internal charging system, but also employees do get into it with the family rates. But we need it recognized to make sure that our accounts are in balance and that we're not undercharging for the experience that we're having.
Okay. Would we have to come back later then and do that, or is that, I mean, that's not part of this, obviously, but would you expect us to come back in the future to raise that, or is that a board decision?
Well, no, I guess the way we wrote it, we are intending to proceed in that direction. If you're not comfortable with that, then you'd have to let us know that, but I'm intending that increase be part of this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're going to move, Member Glass, you had a question?
Yeah, the question on page 36, we have...
Wait, we're on 4A1 now.
41, which one?
4A1, we're on 33. Yeah. Okay, any more? Okay, now we're going to move on to 4A3, and that was Member Johnston first.
Yeah. Main question I had on that, I think this is the same thing. This is a contract for the service provider, not for the actual insurance, right?
That's correct. Again, this is the third-party administrator for the plans that are noted there, the Flex Plan, the HRA, and the 403B administrative and compliance full service.
Okay. I thought, but then I was confused on the last item there, that 403B, 500 flat fee per month, and that's obviously not or is that how much we're paying the contractor here, or the EBC, or
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Again, for administrative services.
Okay, that's a lot. 500 a month per employee, or is that just?
Oh, that's a flat fee for the entire district.
Oh, okay, so that's 500. Oh, well then that's better. You're gonna say, wow. Okay, good, thank you.
Member Glass.
Yes, how many employees are served by that 403B?
The number's in the hundreds. I can't peg it down more closely than that at this point, but I'd be glad to send it to you. It's several hundred.
So each one of these plans has a different number of employees associated with it? Right.
Yes.
So maybe you could just tell us what those numbers were at some future time.
I'll put that out to you this week.
Good, thank you.
Okay, we're going to vote on the entire Business Committee report, excluding the resolution. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries 4-2 with members Glass and Johnston voting against it. Okay, Member Grover, if you want to take the resolution.
Last item is the resolution, the one resolution this evening found on page 54. Resolution declaring intent to issue general obligation alternative facilities capital appreciation bonds, Series 2011B of ISD 709 in the principal amount of not to exceed $787,634.25. Be it resolved by the Board of ISD 709, the district, and going down to section 2 of the bonds, the board determines that it is necessary, expedient, and in the best educational interest of the district's pupils and residents that the district issue, sell, and deliver its general obligation alternative facilities capital appreciation bonds, Series 2011, in the principal amount not to exceed the amount previously stated for the purpose of providing funds for the abatement of hazardous components at East High School, Grant Elementary, and Congdon Elementary pursuant to the plan and costs of issuance of the bonds. And further down contains a notice of intent to issue the bonds. And further down yet, the official intent, this resolution constitutes a declaration of official intent under Treasury regulations. I move resolution B 10-11-2939 dated 10/18/11.
Thank you, Member Grove. Is there a second? Seconded by Member Casper. Is there any discussion? Member Johnston.
Madam Chair, now this is just again the intent to sell, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, but then it goes on and say that we are determining that it is necessary, expedient, in the best education interests of the district pupils and residents that the district sell and deliver these bonds. I mean, I don't know, well, why are we passing a thing on the intent? Why don't we just get the bond together, and which I have a question about, but why are we doing this extra step?
It's part of the requirements for what is involved with financing within the statute and the section that that all facilities bonding is done as part of. And so it's brought to us by Attorney Tofty as part of this program, which you directed us to do in June.
You know, this is from the review and comment, Amendment 2, isn't that correct? It seems like the same amount.
It's one of the amounts within that 15.4 million that was approved in June and is currently in review and comment at MDE, yes.
Okay, right, so why aren't we doing all three of them? Why are we just doing one now?
We will be back to you next month with more. This one is just one that we could, I don't remember exactly the concern that Mr. Tofty had or the issue that he had relative to timing, but there are timing requirements for all of these, and we're working to meet those timelines.
Okay. Again, I have to object to this here, barring this discussion we just had. Thanks for that clarification. But again, we don't have this approved yet by MDE, and it seems like we're jumping the gun here. And if I recall right, our previous discussions were that, for example, like on Congdon, money was already being spent from the review and comment on, say, for example, plan revisions. Is that correct? Am I recalling somewhat correctly? That's probably an unfair question, Mr. Leiter, but that's what I recall, say it that way. And it seems like here we are now going back and still doing bonds. It hasn't been approved yet. I think that we as a board should take a step back and get this approved before we go forward and certainly start to spend money.
Member Glass?
Yes, it was an interesting stringing together of a number of descriptors: general obligation, alternate facilities, capital appreciation bonds, that Mr. Rich Paulson spoke of earlier tonight. Are these the bonds that were to be take effect in 2016?
They take effect, or the payback actually happens in a later period, yes. I don't know the date off the top of my head.
But we're paying some premium on interest just to use these particular issues?
The point of the payback schedule is to meet the payback promise that was, or the payback situation that was laid out for the taxpayers at the beginning of the project. And in order to do that, then the available monies will be available in the years that were described, or that will be described in the in other documents of the issue.
Okay. The finance summary document that we saw as part of the review and comment showed a mounting amount of debt and payback, but it didn't include the other bonds or the other debts that we had incurred, like the $4 million for the STC. That was not on that plot. Are there other issues that were not on that plot that we need to be able to see the big picture on?
I'm drawing a blank, Member Glass. To my knowledge, everything was represented on there. I don't know the $4 million that you're referring to.
Including the STC unpaid bonds?
Those would, well, they're not on there because they're already, there's already a payback budget for them.
But they're still going out 4 more years, so they're part of the budget in the next 4 years, but they're not plotted on that plot. I mean, there's more going on there than is described by the facilities.
Right. The graph that you're talking about plots those issues that are related to the long-range facilities plan, doesn't plot the existing issues that we already have in place prior to the plan.
Right. So, for instance, where can we see the effect of not getting the $660,000 for the Lincoln Middle School that we just sold for $1, or are about to sell for $1? Will we see that show as a bump somewhere where we're going to have to borrow more money to make up that difference?
Ultimately, you'll see that in the assumptions, as you are aware. The assumptions for property sales have been reduced from the original amount given the market situation that we're in. And I guess we don't have definitive information. We're going to have pluses and minuses relative potentially to each of the sales that we have. But ultimately where that comes back to us is within that transfer item that Mr. LeBlanc talked about before, because those will be the monies coming into the capital fund that will ultimately be part of the transfer out to the debt service fund.
Well, it does seem a little strange to have this small amount being borrowed for such a long time in the future when we have all these other things in play. So I would say that this is a little premature, and that we don't have the approval from MDE. We've got other things that are going on, and that it is not at all a good policy to spend premium dollars on a product that is so high priced at its interest. There's got to be another way to do this.
I guess I just want to remind the board that this is a declaration of intent, and we are intending to, issue these bonds. But if we don't get approval through the review and comment process, then we won't be selling these.
I had a question. I didn't understand what Mr. Paulson was saying, but I thought I understood it here, and I hope I'm incorrect, but he was saying of these, that we're getting our $787,000 for it. Yeah, it's going to cost us, what's the interest on that when the time we pay these back? He indicated that it was quite high. Do you know approximately what that interest would be?
We won't know that until we actually have interest information from from the bidder.
Well, I'm going to take a guess. I mean, he was saying that it's going to be quite high. You know, like this is going to be as high interest as the bond is, which is pretty unusual for bonds. Usually bond interest is quite low, but I mean, I'm just asking to take a wild guess. Is he, you know, is it going to be, might it be another 500,000, 700,000 interest we're paying, or is it going to be this, that regular 2 or 3% we typically pay on bonds?
I'm not, it'd be very difficult for me to hazard a guess on that. I could tell you that there will be a premium because the payback occurs in the future, but in terms of what it's going to be, I can't say that with any certainty.
Yeah, okay, so how many years is it before we start paying it back? I mean, how long does this bond go? Just tell me a little bit of that. I mean, is it a 20-year bond, or is it 10 years, or what?
Again, I didn't have the date in front of me as to when the payback starts, and would have welcomed these questions earlier, but it's the part of the graph that fits into you know, the small shaded area at the top of the graph, which is where the all facilities, you know, bond was structured when we put that in front of you before.
Okay. Yeah, I was mainly just, you know, trying to figure out here if Mr. Paulson was correct there, and we can talk more about that. I know you don't have these numbers at your fingertips, and we'll pursue it later. So, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Gronson.
I have a really easy one. There's a spelling error at the beginning. It's principal, and we have principal, but the person.
That is how it is.
It is? Is that correct?
Yeah.
I apologize.
Disregard.
Okay. Okay, we're going to go ahead and vote on Resolution 10, 11, 29, 39. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, that carries 4-2 with members Johnston and Glass voting against it. Okay, I think where are we now? Did we vote on? We're done with business. Okay, that's what I was thinking we had done. Okay, and the last thing. These questions are there. No special resolutions. Questions are there. And Marcus, you would like to say something?
Yes. Last month I spoke about class sizes. It was generally a kind of a negative comment on behalf of the schools, and it was actually published in the paper the next day, my quote. And I just want to make it clear that as a whole, it's been a very positive transition to the new school. All the students are really happy. We're taking everything with really high morale, and we're happy. So everything is generally positive. So thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. I appreciate those comments. Okay, is there anything else? Oh, Member Watson, go ahead.
I'd just like to say today I had a delicious lunch at the new restaurant at East High School, and I would encourage everyone to go. The wait staff was great, and the chefs did a great job, and it's just a wonderful thing. So keep that on your list of places to eat, because it was really something special, and the kids were really excited. This was their first day. It was their grand opening. So.
Thank you, Member Watson. You wanted to say?
Yeah, Member Watson, if I may, how does one go about doing that?
Yep. Yeah, they would prefer if you make a reservation,
okay,
and then you can get the menu online, and you'll pre-order so that the students have a chance to prepare the meal beforehand and learn different things.
So it's similar to what was done up on the hill.
Exactly. It's exactly the same thing as the view.
Is this being done out at Denfeld also?
No.
Do you know, Lindsay?
No,
it is not.
There's a deli. There's a deli that is selling things at Denfeld.
Denfeld. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Member Casper.
I want to thank Marcus for his comments, and it's nice to hear that the students at East are working towards the solutions and being a part of that positive experience. I'd like to also ask Lindsay what she is hearing at Denfeld as far as the new accommodations and how the students are embracing that.
I would agree. I've heard awesome positive comments about class sizes, and yeah, I haven't heard anything negative about class sizes since the beginning of the year, so it's been really good. So thank you.
Thank you. Marcus, you wanted to say one more thing?
And just one last comment after the comment that I made last month. We did have an improvement in class sizes actually for especially the CITS classes. So really there's nothing really to complain about on our end, so thank you.
Thank you. I love hearing those comments. And I do want to just make sure, Assistant Superintendent Gronseth, that we do talk about closed campuses. Just have a discussion about it. I know the kids are working really hard picking up garbage and being respectful of the neighborhood, but I know it is a concern of the neighborhoods, and it is something that board members did ask for this past month, and we do need to have it this next month. So we'd really appreciate.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
May I add to that we'll be looking for input from both of you. I think there's a good chance it'll be on the Education Committee agenda next month. Heads up, Bill?
Yes. I've already planned to discuss it with the principals at tomorrow's principal meeting.
Thank you very much. Okay, with that, we are adjourned.